The funeral proceeded with an almost orchestrated perfection. The ceremony followed the expected sequence. Speeches were brief, and attendees dispersed in an orderly manner, as if an invisible script dictated every movement. No disagreements were recorded. No unresolved matters were noted. According to official documentation, all procedures related to the death were completed as scheduled. The family returned home, resuming routines that had already adjusted to accommodate the absence. Administratively, the case was closed. A life, a cycle, a final and uncontested farewell. 3 days later, however, a letter arrived. It did not come through traditional mail. It was delivered directly, without postal stamps or processing marks that could indicate an origin. There was no return address. The envelope was plain, unremarkable, except for a name written on the front. A name that had not appeared in any formal correspondence related to the estate, medical records, or funeral arrangements. At first, the assumption was practical, a delayed message of condolence, a personal note that had missed the funeral. This explanation, however, lasted only until the envelope was opened. What was inside was not a farewell, but the beginning of a mystery that would dismantle a life and challenge the very notion of closure, for the letter carried anomalies that not only questioned its origin, but the very reality of death, and its content would be known by only one person. The letter was not opened in a public setting. It was read in a private room, away from extended family members and funeral attendees. Only immediate relatives were present, and initial uncertainty lingered over who the true recipient might be. The envelope carried a single name, clearly written, without titles, honorifics, or family references. The name belonged to the deceased's daughter. She was in her mid-30s and had attended the funeral alongside the rest of the family. Unlike some relatives, her role in this state process was formally established. Her name appeared clearly in the will, listed as a direct beneficiary, with assets assigned according to standard legal procedures. Her participation in the administrative steps following the death was expected and documented. There was nothing irregular about her position within the family structure. She had maintained consistent contact with her father during his life, attended family events, and was not known to be estranged. From an external perspective, her involvement in the inheritance followed a predictable pattern. For that reason, the letter was initially assumed to concern financial or legal matters. That assumption was dismissed almost immediately. The message did not reference property, assets, or monetary arrangements. It contained no instructions related to the will, no revisions, no requests for meetings or documentation. Whatever the letter addressed did not intersect with the estate in any formal or procedural way. This was understood without discussion, though no one present described the content aloud. The structure of the letter was irregular. There was no greeting, no acknowledgement of the funeral, no reference to family roles, shared history, or obligation. The text consisted of a few short paragraphs written in steady, deliberate handwriting. At the end, one sentence was separated from the rest, written with the same care but given visual emphasis by spacing alone. "Forgive me for everything." No one else read the letter, only the daughter. Initially, the family considered the possibility that the letter had been written long before and delivered late. That explanation was briefly accepted, then quietly abandoned. The paper showed no signs of aging. The ink was uniform, with no fading or smudging. More notably, the handwriting closely resembled samples found in the deceased's personal notebooks, which had been catalogued during the inventory process after his death. This resemblance was noticed independently by more than one person. No handwriting analysis was requested. No official comparison was filed. Privately, the family accepted that the letter had been written by the father himself. But the most disturbing anomaly lay in the letter's very material, The paper, of an unusual texture and weight, was later identified as a type of banknote paper discontinued over 50 years ago, and the ink, though appearing fresh, possessed a chemical composition that had not existed commercially for decades. How could such a recent letter have been written on such ancient and rare materials? This private acceptance of authorship, despite the letter's material impossibilities, created a contradiction no one dared formally address. In the final days before his death, the father had been hospitalized under restricted conditions. Medical records indicate his condition required constant supervision. According to institutional logs, he did not handle personal belongings, did not receive visitors outside a pre-approved list, and did not send correspondence of any kind. Staff members later stated no outgoing mail was registered under his name during that period. After his death, his residence was temporarily sealed for inventory. The process followed standard legal procedure. Rooms were documented, personal items cataloged, and all written materials, including notebooks and loose papers, were reviewed and archived. No draft of a letter matching the received message was recorded. No envelopes, no unused stationery, no writing samples consistent with the final message were separated for analysis. Despite all this evidence, the question of authorship was never formally raised. Within the family, there was no dispute over whether the handwriting belonged to him. No alternative explanations were proposed. The matter was treated as settled without documentation, as if the conclusion required no procedural support. While this state bureaucracy unfolded with an almost unsettling administrative perfection, without a single question or dispute, the life of the daughter, the only one to read the letter, began to systematically unravel. Within weeks, she initiated a divorce. The separation occurred without a stated cause. No prior disputes had been recorded in public or private, no contested assets, no extended negotiations, no follow-up filings suggesting conflict. According to individuals close to the couple, the decision was communicated abruptly and without explanation. Shortly thereafter, she resigned from the job she had held for several years. Colleagues stated she had shown no intention of leaving and had made no complaints. No new employment was registered in the following months. Professional contacts reported she stopped returning calls entirely. The withdrawal extended beyond work. Family members reported she declined visits, avoided extended conversations, and limited communication to short, functional messages. She did not reference the letter again. She did not allow anyone else to read it. When asked about it, she redirected the conversation or ended it. Then her assets were sold. Properties listed under her name were placed on the market and transferred in sequence. Personal belongings were liquidated through intermediaries. The process followed legal procedures and concluded without delay. No items were preserved. No personal effects were retained for sentimental or archival reasons. After the final sale, she was no longer seen. There was no registered relocation, no public record of travel, no subsequent employment history, no further contact with family or friends. Attempts to locate her through official channels produced no results. No missing person reports were filed. No legal disputes prompted investigation. Administratively, nothing was wrong. What remained was a documented sequence of actions that followed a single event without explanation, without reversal, and without record of intent. The most disturbing anomaly, however, resided in the very nature of this transformation. There were no indications of coercion, external threats, or any visible pressure. The daughter, once a stable and integrated woman, seemed to have been rewritten from within, becoming a stranger to herself and to everyone around her. Her disappearance was not a desperate flight, but a methodical and calculated annulment of her own existence, as if the letter had provided a manual for erasing every trace of her former identity. The mystery was not what the letter said, but what it did. What could have been written to induce such a radical and irreversible change, leaving no single trace of conflict or explanation? To this day, no one outside the immediate family knows what was written in the letter. There is no copy, no transcription. No one beyond the daughter read its content. The original document was never submitted for review, archived, or referenced in legal proceedings. Its existence is acknowledged, but its content remains a solitary secret, locked in the mind of a woman who vanished. Authorities were never contacted regarding the letter. No investigation was opened. No inquiry was requested. From an institutional perspective, nothing required clarification. The death was registered, the estate processed, assets distributed, and sold. Everything followed the rules. Legally, nothing happened. Over time, the family stopped discussing the matter. The daughter's absence became an accepted condition, a silent void in the family tapestry. With no dispute, no formal complaint, there was nothing to pursue. What remains is a sequence of cold, disturbing facts. A man died. A letter arrived days later, written on impossible paper and ink. It was accepted as authentic without verification. And after it was read, an adult woman systematically dismantled every structure of her life, becoming unrecognizable to all who knew her. There's no record of coercion, no evidence of threat, no explanation for the decisions that followed. Only a documented silence, a vacuum of motivation. The funeral marked an end that could be filed. The letter, however, introduced something that could not be contained, something that corroded the very essence of a person. And without violating a single rule, without triggering any alarm, it quietly erased an existence from the systems meant to record it, and perhaps from reality itself. The true mystery is not what the letter said, but what it did and why. And that unanswered question, my friends, is what truly haunts us. If this case messed with your head, follow the channel for more stories like this. We share real events that were documented, but never fully explained. And if there's a case you think should be told here, leave it in the comments. Until the next video, bye-bye.